Livingston Planning Commission meeting agenda for Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We'd like to call the meeting to order and get a roll call, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Renee Mendoza. Here. Commissioner Andres Fuentes.
Here.
Commissioner Jose Flores.
Here.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi.
Here.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Present.
For the record, Planning Commissioners, Vice Chair and Chair are all in attendance.
Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Seated. Public comments. It's members of the audience. At this time, any person may comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. While the Planning Commission encourages participation from the audience, no more than 5 minutes are allowed per discussion item. Topics not considered urgency matters may be referred to city staff and or placed on the next agenda for consideration and or action by the Planning Commission. Item number 4 is our minutes from August 8th, 2023. Yeah. Anybody that has not on there on the agenda? Not seeing any strange faces. I didn't think so. Anybody on the phone? No. So we'll close the public comment, make it 7:02, and go to number 4, August 8th minutes. I reviewed them, did not see any changes or correction. Did any other commissioners see anything?
No.
Hearing none.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 8th agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call.
Roll call. Commissioner Renee Mendoza.
Yes.
Commissioner Andres Fuentes.
Yes.
Commissioner Jose Flores.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi.
Yes.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
I'll turn number 5 over to Miguel, please.
Good evening, Miguel Galvez, City Planner for the City of Livingston. Staff has 4 items of correspondence for the Commission. These items have been placed in front of you on the dais. Item number 1 is on August 16th, Planning Commissioner Happy Baines submitted a letter of resignation from his position as a regular Planning Commission member of the Planning Commission to be effective immediately. So that was as of August 16, 2023. On September 8, Merced Irrigation District submitted a letter regarding agenda item 7B, the Green Zone Industrial Business Park. It's a copy of the letter that was previously submitted by them on February 17th. It's also included as attachment 9 to the staff report. So it's just a repeat of a letter previously submitted. Today, on September 12th, Planning Commissioner Chair Wallace submitted correspondence regarding agenda 7B, the Green Zone Industrial Business Park. He has asked staff some questions on this item, and responses to his questions will be provided as part of the presentation. Item number 14, Planning Commission Chair Wallace submitted a correspondence regarding his decision to step down as the Planning Commission Chair effective October 1st, 2023. And those are the 4 items I have for correspondence for the Commission.
Interest, please, Miguel.
Sure. Conflict of interest, members of the Planning Commission will declare an actual or apparent conflict of interest before discussion or any decisions about any matters in which they or anyone with whom they have a close personal relationship could directly or indirectly benefit, or where such a benefit could be perceived. At this point, it would be appropriate for the members to declare any conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. Do any of the commissioners have any conflict of interest with agenda item 7B?
No.
No.
None, okay. Public hearing, 7A, consent item, consent. Item 7B is an, let me see if Martha can bring it up. This is General Plan Amendment number GPA 2020-01 and tentative subdivision map. Thank you very much. Application 2020-01 Green Zone Industrial Business Park. It's a request to redesignate the general plan designation of the project site from industrial reserve to limited industrial and to subdivide a 19.87 acre parcel into 22 lots and a storm drain basin. It's on property located on Bird Street. This is a general map of the vicinity. The project site is outlined in red. That's the 18-acre property. It is bounded by Bird Street on the east side. Bird Street, that property is completely within the city limits. If you look at the bottom of the property, the red, if you extend that eastward, that's also Bird Street. From the project site out to Cressy Road, all that portion of Bird Street is in the county. Let me do a close-up view of this property. The site is currently fallow. It used to be an orchard. The orchard has been removed. Some of the improvements on the site are there's the started irrigation canal northeast to the southwest. There's Bird Street. On Bird Street, where it crosses the canal, there's a bridge. There's infrastructure related to the irrigation system on the property. Along the north portion of the property, there's a row of electrical power lines. Other than that, the property is vacant. Properties to the south, to the west, are farmed in with rural agriculture. Properties to the east, there's an orchard there. Properties to the north, that is property that belongs to the city. It's the, I know it's used as a shooting range. I think it's part of the city's old ponds or something like that. Here's the lot configuration according to the county's assessor map. You can see that it's 19.87 acres. The right-of-way within the Bird Street right-of-way in front of the property is 40 acres. 40 feet in width presently. In terms of general plan and zoning, we have on the left the general plan designation. Currently, the property has a general plan designation of IR, Industrial Reserve. The IR Industrial Reserve was assigned to properties that were contemplated to be developed after 2020. Before 2020, they want to keep that property in reserve. At this point, it's beyond 2020, so it's appropriate for it to be redesignated. That's what the applicant is requesting to do. So the current general plan designation on the left is IR, Industrial Reserve. On the right side there, the property is zoned M1, Limited Industrial. The property to the south is General Industrial. That's the Foster Farms properties. The properties to the east are located in the county, and I believe they're generally zoned as agriculture. And the properties to the north are public facility. Here are some pictures, recent pictures of the property. You can see the upper left that's looking to the northwest along Bird Street there at the corner as it turns north. The one on the upper right, you look west along the boundary. You can see the row there, power poles. Those go the length of the property, and they turn south to the Foster Farms plant. The bottom left is kind of like the existing property. This is looking from Bird Street into the property. You have some of the trees that have been felled and collected there. The bottom right is looking to the north from the southeast corner, just along the canal bank. A little further pictures of the property. The top west is looking to the southwest from Bird Street at the northeast corner, so this is the upper portion of the property. Upper right there, looking southeast from the northwest corner. You can see the power poles that go further south. And then here's the bottom left is looking east onto Bird Street. You can see the current bridge that crosses the canal, the started irrigation canal. And then conversely, you can see from the bridge looking to the southwest, the canal and the balance of the property. Further south, you can see the Foster Farms plants and facilities out there. And just for a little further perspective, along Bird Street, as it approaches Cressy Road, the top right, you're looking at Bird Street. If you're on the Cressy Road intersection, the top right, you're looking east onto Bird Street from the project site, so you're looking east to that intersection. And then the bottom left, you're looking north at the intersection of Cressy and Bird Street. Then you can see the one on the bottom right is looking south onto Cressy Road from Bird Street. So you can see the type of improvements that are there. Again, the proposal for the Green Zone Industrial Business Park, it's a general plan amendment. It's to a request to amend the general plan designation of the project site from IR Industrial Reserve to LI Limited Industrial. The tentative subdivision map is a request to subdivide a 19.87 acre parcel into 22 lots and an additional storm drain basin on property. And it will also include private streets, and the property is zoned M1 Limited Industrial. There will be, there's proposed a perimeter wall with gates for the project site. Just a little background, this project has been with the city for some 3 or 4 years. It started back in 2019. There was an application by a different applicant, and they requested a subdivision map, a site plan design review for a cannabis business park. May 2022, we have a new applicant who has applied for a master conditional use permit to propose cannabis business park, the general plan amendment, a site plan design review for a conceptual layout of the property, a number of the properties, the tentative subdivision map, and the environmental assessment. And it was proposed to be developed in phases. The environmental assessment was circulated for review from January 2023 through February 2023. There was it went both to the public, the state clearinghouse, and it was advertised in the paper as well. In March 2023, the city determined that a master conditional use permit application for a speculative cannabis business park is not allowed. Our current zoning provisions do not allow a cannabis business park. Any cannabis permits would have to be applied for on an individual basis, and those would be judged independently on their own merits. The applicant then amended his application to drop the cannabis business park master conditional use permit and just go with an industrial business park and move forward with the subdivision map. July 2023, legal counsel questioned whether the initial study mitigating negative declaration need to be recirculated because the project description was amended, dropping the cannabis business park. In August 2023, legal counsel determined that recirculation was not necessary, and so the public hearing that we scheduled in 2023 was continued and re-advertised for discussion this evening. Again, here's the general plan. The existing is IR on the left, and it's going to be proposed to change to LI, Limited Industrial. Here's a proposed tentative subdivision map. There's 17 acres. The parcels range, I think, from 20,000 or 29,000 to like 63,000 square feet in area. There's a canal here. I'll go through some of these. There's the location of the proposed storm drain basin that's highlighted in blue. This is existing irrigation canal that is being proposed to be underground and the alignment relocated. It'll be relocated, I believe, along C Street and then go up on the west side of Bird Street. The applicant is proposing private roads as identified, outlined in purple. Here's the location of the proposed city well to serve this site. It is proposed to be connected to the city's water system. Here's Bird Street, and reflected in yellow. City staff will be requiring that half street improvements be made to Bird Street there. Again, the whole width of Bird Street there is within the city limits, but they're only required to build the west half to industrial street standards. You can't barely see it, but the canal is over the bridge will have to be reconstructed as the whole irrigation line will be placed underground. That whole bridge will be required to be redone. And again, the proposed project involves a perimeter fence, a perimeter wall to be exact, with gates there at the entrance, and there's turnaround for folks to turn around there. So that's the tentative subdivision map, the Green Zone Industrial Business Park. No issues were identified with the general plan amendment request, redesignating this project site from industrial reserve to limited industrial. There are minor technical issues associated with the proposed tentative subdivision map. Those were identified, and for the most part, those can be addressed at the time of the final map. Typically, when we get a project, we send it out to responsible agencies and departments, and we receive 3 outside responses, one from PG&E, which they didn't have any conditions. We received some comments from Merced Irrigation District. They had some conditions, and those are listed as conditions of approval, numbers 56 through 64. And then we got comments from the Merced County Public Works Department, and those conditions are conditions 54 and 55. From the city, we received comments from the city engineer. And again, these are conditions of approval that are reflected in the proposed resolution, Planning Commission resolution for the tentative subdivision map. The city engineer has conditions 1 through 53 in the staff report. Condition number 26 requires dedication of right-of-way for the west half of Bird Street. I'm just calling out some of the more significant ones. Condition of approval number 28, pay the fair share construction and improvements of certain intersections and streets. Conditions 30 through 36 deal with water supply and connection to a city water system. Conditions of approval 37 to 42 deal with public sewer system, the extension and connection to it. And then the following ones are 43 to 45 dealing with storm drainage, and then 46 to 43 dealing with the privately owned improvements to streets, the basin, the infrastructure. And those are all included in the proposed Planning Commission resolution. As I mentioned, the project description has evolved. At one point, it was called the Cannabis Business Park Master Plan Conditional Use Permit. That component has been dropped. There's no conditional use permit or site plan design review that's proposed this evening. Right now, as I mentioned, the property is zoned industrial, limited industrial, and so limited industrial uses are permitted per the city's zoning code. And just to emphasize, there's non-retail, no retail cannabis uses may be permitted under a separate application process on a property-by-property basis. I'll just repeat that again. First of all, retail cannabis uses are not allowed, and I meant to say that non-commercial cannabis uses may be permitted under a separate application process on a property-by-property basis. I apologize for that typo there. Neighborhood concerns, we heard concerns at one of the prior meetings, concerns with cannabis business and the concern for the safety. There's concerns expressed about illegal trespassing on the property and perhaps the cannabis business park or cannabis uses being a magnet for illegal trespassing. Again, cannabis is not being proposed tonight, but these were some of the concerns that were expressed. There was concerns expressed with increased traffic. Again, no cannabis business permit or license is being proposed or considered this evening. It's just the general plan amendment and the subdivision map application. Whenever we amend the general plan, there are findings that have to be met. Finding A, the general plan will maintain a logical land use pattern without detriment to existing planned land uses. The property was intended to be zoned industrial. It was industrial reserve. It continues that similar land use pattern. B, the city and other affected government agencies will be able to maintain levels of service consistent with the ability to the governmental agency to provide a reasonable level of service. The proposed application, the subdivision map, is being conditioned to make sure it meets all of the city's ability to provide services to it, maintain its level of service. And the amendment is consistent with the general plan goals and policies. Again, it's maintaining the city's goal for this area to be developed industrially. So those items are remain consistent. When it comes to the subdivision, we look at the ordinance with state law and our own development standards. Starting off with the law that clearly says the city shall deny the map findings. One, that the proposed map is not consistent with the applicable general plan. It will be consistent once the IR to LI. B, that the design or improvements of the proposed subdivision is not consistent with applicable general community specific plans. The design is consistent with our zoning standards and policies of our general plan. The site is not physically suitable for this type of development. Again, at this point, it's a subdivision, and staff did not find any reasons that the project is not suitable. These are nice big lots in an industrially zoned area. E, that the design of the subdivision and proposed improvements are likely to cause substantial environmental damage substantially and avoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitat. An environmental assessment was conducted, and we got comments from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And, they reviewed our documents, and they had some comments, but those comments did not generate any new mitigation measures or reasons to identify that there was any significant impacts to fish or wildlife or their habitat. That the design of the subdivision type of improvements are likely to cause serious public health problems. Again, with conditions of approval that will be applied to the project, staff believes that this is not something that will happen, though serious public health concerns will be generated with the conditions of approval that will be imposed. G, that the design of the subdivision type of improvements will conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through use of a property within the proposed subdivision. The only easements that are running through the property at this point are the irrigation easements, and those items have been addressed by Merced Irrigation District. So there's really no conflicts with any easements there. So we looked at the general plan and subdivision. Now the zoning ordinance consistency. The property, as I mentioned, is zoned M1, limited industrial, and no development projects are proposed at this time, so we really don't have anything to evaluate. When the properties are final, the lots are final and they are sellable, then future development of any of those lots would be subject to the city's zoning regulations as it relates to any permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses in the M1 zone. Development and performance standards for these land uses of the M1 zone will apply for the whole project site. Moving on to CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. As I described earlier, the project description initially included an evaluation of both a cannabis business park with industrial uses, and it also considered an industrial business park with only industrial land uses, and it was for a 22-lot subdivision. So the CEQA included both options, a cannabis business park and just a business park with industrial uses. The project now is just proposing a 22-lot subdivision for industrial uses. The cannabis component is not, has been dropped. An initial study was prepared in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act requirements. It determined that there was a number of potentially significant impacts that would occur, and it identified measures to reduce those impacts to a level of no significance. A mitigated negative declaration with mitigation and monitoring program has been prepared. That's that big document as part of your agenda packet. Sorry, it's like 300 pages. Just a summary, the following evaluation areas were identified for the proposed project, and they could have resulted in potentially significant impacts to air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology, soils, traffic and circulation, utilities, service systems. However, because mitigation measures are identified and incorporated as conditions of approval, those potentially significant impacts go to non-significant impacts. The City of Livingston prepared the initial study, MND, the mitigating negative declaration, which was circulated for the 30-day public review period from January 20 to February 2023. And then it was referred to the state clearinghouse for their review from January 25th to February 26, 2023. 2 comments were received by the city, one from the Department of Fish and Wildlife and one from the California Department of Cannabis Control. In response to those comments is provided, it's included in attachment 13. The conditions of approval reflecting the mitigation measures has been placed on the Planning Commission Resolution 2023-09. A copy of the mitigation monitoring program that was prepared for this document is also attached as Appendix A to Exhibit A of Attachment 1. In terms of public notice for the item, on August 8th, the Planning Commission conducted a scheduled public hearing, but the item was continued to the Planning Commission of September 12th. The public hearing notice for the September 12th Planning Commission meeting was published on August 4th and again on September 8th. Notices were mailed out to property owners within 600 feet of the project site. At this point, staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing and to adopt 3 resolutions. Number 1, Resolution 2023-09, recommending adoption of the initial study mitigated negative declaration. That includes a mitigation monitoring program for the Green Zone Industrial Business Park. And 2, recommend adoption of Resolution 2023-10, recommending approval of the tentative subdivision map application number TSM 2020-01 to subdivide the 19.87 acre property into 22 lots and a storm drainage basin lot. And lastly, recommend approval of Plan Commission Resolution 2023-11, recommend the City Council approve the General Plan Amendment application number GPA 2020-01 to amend the General Plan designation from Industrial Reserve to Limited Industrial LI. That concludes my questions. I know staff from the city's engineering staff is here, other department staff are here, and we have representatives from the applicant that are here that can also respond to questions.
Miguel, before we go to the commissioners and into the public, can you go back to the slide with the 4 pictures way at the beginning of your presentation? I have one
Okay,
comment
here.
on one of them. With the pictures of the 4 slides.
Yes, thank you, Martha. The first one there?
First, right there. On the bottom left, looking west into the project site, I had talked to our engineer from the fire department if he had gone out and seen this site. Have you?
Yes, I drove down there.
You have not?
I have.
You have?
Yeah, I drove
Would you
down.
come to the microphone, please, state your name so everybody in the audience knows who you are?
Robert Wynn, Merced County Fire Department. All the commissioners, thank you for having me. Yes, I did drive down to this location. I looked at it. I didn't get out of the fire engine to walk the property or anything like that. There's been a lot of other things going on, but I would love to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. My question is that on that bottom left picture, all that dried wood that's been cut and left there, I know we had a lot of rain, but it's really dried out now. I was out there twice today. Is that a potential fire hazard in that area? I know in the past, Livingston Fire Department has had to go out there for a couple of fires. And I'm just wondering if the present owner needs to clean that up now before we get much more into the dry season.
What I will
You're
do.
the expert on it.
I am. What I will do, I'll go out there, I'll take pictures of it, I'll look at the fuel, I'll look at all the different things that could be potentially a fire hazard to the land out there, and I will personally email the city manager to disseminate that information, and if there is a threat, we will take care of it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from any of the commissioners right now? Other than that one?
I want to hear from the public.
Go ahead. Is your mic on?
Since they're subdividing the lot, are they going to require utilities for every single lot and whatever building they have on that property?
Yes, each lot will be required to be provided with water, sewer, storm drainage. Those will be, even on private properties, will be installed and placed in easements.
Okay. So that's going to include hydrants, access, all that wonderful stuff.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. So when we were talking about non-cannabis industrial, what falls under that definition of non-cannabis industrial?
For the M1 zone,
Yeah.
because it would be an M1 zone, it was on page 21 of the Green Zone Industrial Park that was on July 2023. It was on page 21, auto body repair, auto storage, auto wrecking, body art establishments, and so on.
So if it reverts, or if the zoning changes from IR to
M1.
light industrial, so it's not like conditioned that if there is cannabis, cannabis type industrial, then can I get the definition for what is cannabis industrial?
Yes, and let me just state for the record, the zoning of the property is not changing. The zoning of the property is M1, limited industrial. The general plan designation is changing from IR to LI, which is industrial reserve, to limited industrial. In terms of defining what I call non-retail cannabis, and this is a question that the Commission Chair Bob Wallace asked to define. The following are subject to a conditional use permit in the M1 zone. So let me just be real clear. Cannabis dispensary retail activity with or without storefront is prohibited anywhere in the city limits, so no retail cannabis, none whatsoever, even in the industrial zone. In addition, non-medical cannabis delivery only, that's also prohibited. You can't deliver that if it's anywhere in the city limits. Those are prohibited. The following are allowed in the M1 zone subject to approval of a conditional use permit. Commercial cannabis cultivation, that's inside, that's indoors. Commercial cannabis cultivation, that's also enclosed, that they call it mixed light. So that's enclosed cultivation. Commercial cannabis cultivation outdoors is also permitted with a conditional use permit. Commercial cannabis distribution is listed as approved use with a conditional use permit. Commercial cannabis manufacturing, volatile and non-volatile. Commercial cannabis micro businesses, which does not include retail, and there's no outdoor cultivation, so micro businesses for commercial cannabis are allowed. Commercial cannabis nursery, indoor or mixed light or greenhouse is allowed under a approval of a use permit. Commercial cannabis testing, that's the use that's allowed if you get a conditional use permit. Medical cannabis delivery only, if it's only if it comes from outside the city limits, that's something that's allowed. But again, retail cannabis or retail storefront is not a permitted use, and that's not being proposed. But as a matter of fact, there's no development proposals that are being proposed this evening. Once the subdivision is fully built out and the lots are final and sellable, then someone can buy those properties and they can apply for a cannabis permit that's allowed under our zoning code. And the cannabis permit application is a two-step process. One, you have to go through a background check through the police department. And once you clear that, you have to enter into a development agreement with the city. After those two items take place, then you can apply for a conditional use permit. And those have to be approved by the planning commission and city council. If it's going to involve construction, which often it does, it also will involve the site plan design review. And each of these applications will have, they potentially will be subject to environmental review depending on what's proposed. But the environmental document that we have this evening has addressed many of the potential impacts. And so what usually will happen is an application comes in and we determine whether or not the proposed project is consistent with what the original project description in the initial study contemplated. So if it's covered under the initial study that we have right now, and we just make findings like, yeah, this was studied, and so it can kind of, what we call it, tear off that document, and they can move forward with that and not do a separate environmental document. But if it's not consistent, then they have to do their own separate individual environmental review process. Sorry, that's a long with.
Yeah, so those non-cannabis industrial uses,
Yes.
are those already uses in the limited industrial currently?
Yes. I got these word for word from the current zoning code. So I think back in 2018, the city amended its zoning code to allow certain cannabis uses. And these were uses that were allowed only in the industrial zone, the ones that I listed. And those are required to get a approval of use permit, as well as as I mentioned, the cannabis permit or license, and as well as entering into a separate development agreement.
What I mean is the non-cannabis industrial, are those already allowed under our limited
zoning?
industrial?
Yeah, if you're talking about non-cannabis, meaning just regular industrial uses, I guess
Yes.
I'm not real clear. Yeah, those are allowed in our zoning code. So there's a variety of industrial uses that are allowed that are non-cannabis. Yeah, our industrial zones are the most, I don't know why we use the generous, but the most liberal uses in the city. So the M2 and the M1, that's a little more restrictive, but they allow most of the more heavier uses. And so cannabis has been approved to be allowed in the M1 zone. Again, non-retail cannabis.
That would include a smoke shop would be one of those items that could be included, right?
Right.
That's retail, right?
Yeah, but if it's a smoke shop that doesn't sell cannabis, it's just like a regular commercial retail.
Commercial retail.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions for any of the other commissioners? Miguel, before we open it up to the public, did you put my questions out front for everybody to have?
I did. I'll review them right now.
Okay.
The chairman, Bob Wallace, asked a number of questions. I'll repeat them here. He says, page 7 of the agenda report says Bird Street is to be developed to half-street standards? Question mark, and the answer is yes. All of the Bird Street right-of-way, let me go to the last slides of the presentation, but yes, the Bird Street right-of-way in front of the project site is within the city limits. The city is requesting that Bird Street right-of-way be built to half-street industrial standards. You can see condition approval number 26 on page 323 of the agenda packet. Question number 2 is all of Bird Street in the city limits? So here's Bird Street, it's identified in yellow right next to the property. That whole street right-of-way is within the city limits. There's 40 feet of right-of-way there.
But the one from Cressy to that intersection is in the county.
Yes, so the area in yellow is Bird Street, that's in the city. The area in green, it's also Bird Street, that's in the county.
The county.
So your question is, all of Bird Street in the city limits? No. Portions of Bird Street from Cressy Road to the project site, that's in the county. And the street right-of-way measures from 35 to 40 feet in width in some areas. The area in yellow, that measures 40 feet of right-of-way right now. And then the next question was, private-owned storm drain basin, who will monitor, the city, the county, or the state? Yes, the storm drain basin will be privately owned and maintained and monitored. Well, it will be privately owned and maintained by the applicant, and the city will monitor making sure
So the city.
it remains in good operating condition. The next question was, what property is affected by the new irrigation easements? Only the sub-project site, the new easement. Let me come back this way here. Oh. I was going to pull up a map of the subdivision. So as you know, there's an irrigation line, and so it will be relocated, it will be placed underground. It's my understanding that it's going to go kind of perpendicular or parallel to the bottom. I don't have a pointer, but it's going to be extended where it's at, eastward, and then from there travel north. It'll be placed underground along the west side of Bird Street, so there'll be an easement for the irrigation canal. And then once it gets under the canal, that canal will be redone and it'll continue on its regular course. The next question was define the non-retail cannabis for the public, which we kind of talked about.
And Commissioner Bassett addressed that, and you answered it, I believe.
Yeah. Is it prohibited in the city? As I mentioned, the cannabis dispensary retail activities with storefront or not, they're prohibited in the city. The next question was, can anyone applicant buy more than one lot? So can anyone in the community buy one or more of the lots that are proposed? It's like, yes, they can. The city does not regulate the sale and purchase of property of these final lots, so anyone can purchase any number of those properties or they're up for sale by the owner. The city is not getting involved with that. And then there was questions on the mitigation measures. Oh, I don't have those. I'll go through each one of those. It says pages 27 and 28 of the project description. Can we define the time frame of 1 year or 1 month? I believe that deals with a year and not a month, meaning the time frame for the development of the property is not going to occur in a month or so.
Yeah, it just said forthcoming.
Yeah. On page 29, the mitigating measure for biology, can we change that from 50 feet to 100 feet? When it comes to these mitigation measures, the city, prepared these documents, and we refer them out to the state agencies. And the state agencies who have authority for citing their regulations, they will review these and determine whether they're adequate or not. Oftentimes, if they're not adequate, they'll let us know. So you need to change that. So at this point, your request to change for example, for the San Joaquin fogs from 50 feet to 100 feet, or change it from 100 feet to 500 feet. Those are not required. Those were not comments that we received from the Department of Fish and Game. The applicant can do that if they so choose, and the applicant is here and they can speak to these type of issues. Another one had to do with mitigating measure number bio 4 on page 30, delete the nighttime construction speed limit as below all activities during the daylight hours. That makes sense. It says, it doesn't need, that language doesn't need to be there. That's real minor because it below says all construction will happen during the day. So there's no need to say that, nighttime construction speed limits shall apply. That's minor. That's something that can be done. Mitigating measure bio 7 on page 32. Can we change it from a half mile to a 1 mile? Again, the same things apply. If we didn't get any comments from the state requesting us to do that, then we pretty much will honor what's been provided in the initial study. On page 35, mitigation measures for cultural resources. Can we change the activities from 50 feet to 100 feet? The same thing applies. On pages 36 to 37, mitigation measure, traffic in all references to year 2042 be changed to the lower year of 2032. That's something that I will have to defer to our city engineer when it comes to that mitigation measure, TRA-1 on pages 36, 37. Again, referencing, I guess it's the cumulative year of 2042. Can that be changed to 2032? I know Noe's here. I don't know if you can speak to that, Noe.
Good evening, Chair and rest of commissioners. Noe Martinez from the Office of the City Engineer, and the answer to that question is no. That is a time frame that was used for modeling purposes for traffic analysis, so we cannot arbitrarily change the years.
Okay, what made me bring it up, it's a long time for 2042, we're growing, and then worry about stoplights, interchange, intersections. That's why I was curious if that 2042 could have been reduced to, say, 2032.
Yeah, well, it's kind of counterintuitive because we're trying to forecast future traffic and how that is going to impact the city. And the law right now requires so many years, and for this project, it turned out to be 2042.
Okay, thank you.
The bottom comment on page 57, you say 3.2 potential factors, there's no impact. Whenever we prepare an initial study, at the very end, we evaluate all the areas that the state requires to identify, and if there's a potential impact that we cannot mitigate, we'll check that box and say, oh, you know what, for example, air resources,
Yeah,
there's going to be impact.
most of them, Miguel just said minor impact. Well, light traffic, and that's businesses out, that's a major impact to the people that own property right in that area. So I don't know why they said there was no impact.
Yeah.
Roads, light, how they live, I mean, that, as we're talking even 5-6 years from now with the development, it's still an impact on what is currently there, because at nighttime, it's dark out there.
No, and no one is saying that there's no impact. The question is it potentially significant? And if it is potentially significant, can it be reduced? Can it be lessened? Can it be mitigated? And so all those impacts that we identified as potentially significant, we identified mitigation measures or conditions of approval to reduce that to a level of insignificance. So yeah, there's some impact, but it's not a significant impact. But more to the point, there are conditions of approval that will be applied to the project that will make it really insignificant impacts, or there's no boxes that were checked. If any of those boxes are checked, then we have to kind of do an EIR that says, you know what, we have to identify like a statement of overriding findings, say this project is so important, there was impacts, we try to reduce, but we can't completely reduce them. So when you get back to, your question, why are there no boxes checked? Because there are some impacts. No one is saying that there are no impacts, but there's no significant impacts that have not been reduced to the level of insignificance. I know it's technical, and the consultant that prepared the EIR that the city reviewed is, they're here, they can respond to some of these questions if you want further comments on that. On page 61, 3, 4, you say that you think the boxes are way too low, at least C and D. This on page 61, item 341. And then same thing on page 69, all boxes seem too low on B, C, and D. Again, whenever we review these, we identify where we believe it's going to be no impacts, potentially significant or insignificant. And we route these out for comment by state agencies, departments, and we ask them for their review. And if they agree with us, we leave it as it is. But if they say, oh, no, this is incorrect, then we will change it. And so when we did the environmental review and we identified the level of impact, if they had a concern, they would have let us know what that was, and we would have checked it. Another question was, instead of turning toward the shooting range, you can turn down the dirt road back out of Cressy. And you're referring to, if you look at up there on the map there, if you drive up along the yellow part of Bird Street, there's a crossing over the canal that goes into the Livingston irrigation right-of-way, and there's a dirt road there. That's not a private road. It's not. That's Livingston. It's a MID right-of-way, but people use it all the time like it's a regular road. I know we drove on that.
That's the one I took you down today.
Yeah, but that's not a public street, and it's just an irrigation easement. It's a road and a canal there. So
MID will currently have no plans of locking it. It'll be a public road, so that gives actually 3 road access if you count Olive Bird and then this dirt road against the canal, 3 roads of access into the business park.
people, it looks like people do use that right away. Martha, can you put on the aerial, the second aerial? Just so everyone can see what we're talking about. But you're absolutely right. It's an existing dirt road. That one. So if you go along Bird Street to the north, to the very top, there's a canal that crosses over to the right, to the east. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, if you look at 317, you'll have a better image of it. 317. I don't know if it's the same on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, so there's a canal right there. This is the canal that's going to be replaced. But there's a canal there, and it goes across to this roadway. It's not a road, it's a dirt road, but that's part of the bank to the canal. And whether MID chooses to close it off or not, it's up to them. But at this point, it is open, and people do use it. They use it more so than Bird Street because Bird Street's in really bad condition. But yeah, your question was, instead of turning north to the shooting range, which is up here, can you turn down the dirt road and back out? So can you go out this way? Yes, you can. Should you? It's MID easement. I don't know to what degree they enforce people trespassing on their easement. I know farmers use it to go around their orchards and stuff like that. But yeah, it looks like it's heavily used, and quite frankly, it's a smoother road than this Bird Street right down here.
And the one that's not shown is you can come down and come in Olive before Park. That's the other third access.
Yeah, you can come down from
Down
the,
in here,
yeah, come-
turn on Olive and then make the right-hand turn.
So these were some of the questions you brought up, and so I tried to respond to them. I know it's a little hard to follow unless you have that document in front of you.
Any other questions from the commissioner before I open it up to the public? Hearing none at 7:50, we'll open it up to the public on the telephone. Not hearing anybody, we'll close public comment from the telephone. Then we'll open it up to anybody in the audience that wishes to speak. Please come to the microphone and state your name. At 7:51. Oh, 7:55, I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. My name is Yolanda Correa, and I am one of the neighbors that you guys have. About that mess that you have out there, it created quite a bit of a nuisance for me, for us, because it's just across the street. They didn't have the courtesy after they cut all the trees to clean up all those trunks. And of course, it's a breeding for squirrels. Well, you don't have anything over there planted, but we do across the street. So I mean, what kind of neighbors is this? That's all I'm saying. Neighbors help each other. I am neighbors with the Smiths. I am neighbors with the Fuentes. I am neighbors with the farmers around there, and we all help each other. But when I reach out to these neighbors, they didn't clean it up. I told them about the problem that we were having with all the squirrels and asked them to please clean it up. They never did. It cost me over $20,000 just on cleaning, taking out the holes, and trying to keep all my almonds away from all the breeding squirrels. And did they ever, I was nice enough to send them something to let them know that we were having a problem with the address that was given to me by Jose Ramirez. At that time, he was city manager. I sent them a certified mail, and they had the courtesy to return it without signing it. Thank you. So, needless to say, we continue spending a lot of money trying to keep that clean because, again, they did not have the courtesy to clean that place up. It doesn't create any problems for them, but it creates quite a bit of problem for all of the farmers around because it created a breeding space. Before, we used to have a squirrel or two. We would get rid of it. It was great. But how do you control so many? It was just too much. Crossing the street, you can see them. Oh, they're beautiful. They're cute. Now when they're in your orchard. Now when they are putting holes and eating your almonds from one tree to another. Not when they are biting your irrigation system. Not when it's costing you thousands and thousands of dollars to try to control because they didn't have the courtesy to clean it up. Now, pardon my ignorance, but you are changing this to light industrial, which of course you mentioned you will not be selling cannabis, you will not be doing any retail whatsoever. That I understood. But you also mentioned, if I am correct, if I understood correctly, is that anybody who buys that, they can pretty much grow it inside there right? Okay, so what's the difference? I mean, I would just like to know what the difference is from one to the other, because they would still be able to do what they were going to do in the first place. How does that help us?
Hang on, just a minute, I'm going to interrupt you. 5 minutes is up, but I always believe in letting people continue, and I was after all my past meetings, so go ahead and continue.
Thank you. So I would like to know, how would that help us? I already spent a lot of money on plans for a house over at my farm, for us to live there. I already paid quite a bit of money to get the permit from the county to build my house there. Do you really think I want to take my family there now? So other than spending thousands of dollars trying to control the squirrels, now I have to lose thousands of dollars not to do what I was going to do over there? Because do you really think that I'm gonna like to smell that skunk smell over there, which we did not ever have? Or is there something that they can do to make sure that it doesn't go out into the atmosphere, that it doesn't go out for me, my kids, to be smelling that? If there is, then I don't have a problem. But if there's not, I just lost. The only one losing here is us, the neighbors around them. And that is all I have to say. If I misunderstood, please let me know. But if I understood correctly, you're doing us a very, you're not doing us a favor. It's very much, very incorrect for anybody. If you, not only that, why doesn't the city grow that way? Only for you to be able to do light industrial? You know, it grows every which way. And here we are just a few feet from the city, right? And one way, Livingston Cressy, there's Bird Street, that way is city. And yet, on the country, the city grows every which way, except there, where we are so close. Why is that? For this? For the cannabis that is going to be? I have nothing against cannabis, please. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of research. I see a lot of things. But only when it's right next to you, to your door, that is affecting you. And in this particular matter, I am the number one neighbor to them. But they didn't seem to care. They didn't seem to bother to see, hey, listen, I'm sorry. This is going to cost us a little bit of money, but we're going to go ahead and clean this out for you guys because this is a nuisance for you. You are losing. You have rodents on your farm because of us. I am sorry. Did I ever hear that? Did they ever do that? I do not think so. When Paul Smith went over there and told them, hey, listen, I can clean it all out for you. Since you're not doing it right now, why don't you let me rent it? A plant sweet potato and that, and it'll be free. They said no, right? Then he gave them the number of somebody that will be able to clean all of that mess, which was causing us problems. But I don't know if they didn't like the price. Maybe it was too expensive to help out the neighbor, right? I have nothing else to say. Please consider everything else and everybody else. Not only Livingston can grow very much, but let's grow in a good way, in a way that we can actually have our kids grow up and be happy to be residents of Livingston. At least I came here in 1974, and I'm still here because I like the city. But this is a very nice little city to raise a family. I have 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience have comments? Please come to the microphone, state your name.
Hi, Kenneth Abelo, been a resident here for a few years. What I'm curious about is which well, because this is just another straw that's drinking from our wells. And what to me too is it's not just, if it was an industrial park where it would be toilets and sewer, that would be one thing. But it's going to be growing. It sounds like, from what I understand, you'll have to forgive me too, I'm just catching up here as well. But if we're growing cannabis here, that's going to use a fair amount of water, and you're already going to be near a well that's being taxed significantly by Foster Farms because of their usage. And I know we can keep putting pipes in the ground and we can keep going deeper, but at what cost? Because I keep looking for, another concern I have is I keep looking for data that's not been processed by the city in terms of nutrient analysis, calcium carbonate, ECs and pHs, heavy metals and selenium, arsenic, nitrite. What are these levels? I don't want to see what you guys have evaluated them and given them back to us as. I want to see them, like what's the lab work that you guys are getting? Whoever's doing your paper, their interpretation of it, and I'd like to make my own interpretation. The last water report that I was able to find online was from 2018, and it was how diligently the city is working to try to remove the 1,2,3-trichloropropane by diligently putting in filtration systems. To my knowledge, there aren't any filtration systems, are there? For the 1,2,3-trichloropropane? Is that something that we can find out? Because I don't think that there is. All I think that there is just regular water treatment. So those are just a few of my concerns. I'd like to a little bit more mindfulness, not just of the neighbors, but of also of the water, because this is going to be taken from, it's taken from the rest of the city. And I see the city's in a big hurry to grow, but I would encourage you guys too to kind of catch up on some other work that needs to be done around here, like roadways. If you're going to have an industrial park on Livingston Cressy, you guys had better strongly consider how, first of all, how dangerous of a road it is, and second of all, how terrible of a road it is because of the potholes in it. And if it's a county-maintained road, you should have county representation that you can take these complaints to and say, hey, we've got a road here that's not being properly maintained, that's supposed to be under your care, and you're not doing a good enough job on it. It's a road that I drive my family on twice a day, and I have to first of all, we have to go around farm equipment that's blocking. Second of all, we have to go around semis. And third of all, we have to go around people who don't know how to apparently drive in the country because they're driving well over the speed limit, or even worse, well under it. So I know these are just a few simple things, but they are matters that do need to be addressed, I believe. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? Please come to the microphone, state your name.
Hello. My name's Monica Fuentes. I have lived on, I get nervous up here. As an educator, I grew up on Bird, 31 years growing up on Bird. So I know this community really well. I could easily say that our road is not equipped to handle all this traffic that's gonna come in. I work with a colleague who used to work for FedEx, and she's all like, oh, you used to live on Bird, you live on Bird? Sorry, I hated going through your road because for our truck, it was really hard to go shoot, basically reversed all the way back to get out. And I kept saying, I'm sorry about that, but our street used to be very quiet. Now it's not. I'm kind of worried that if we end up building this, if they end up building this, our safety for our children that are growing up on that road is gonna affect it. Especially when the school is about 0.6 miles away, our closest elementary. So that's basically my worry. Where's our safety gonna go? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the audience? Please come to the microphone.
I'm Peter Smith. My brother Paul and I own property there. And I just, first time I've been to a meeting like this, so just gonna give you a couple of my thoughts. I don't know if they're worth much, but I'm a farmer and I've grown up on a farm, and so this type of development is nothing that I, really am enthused about, even if it's nothing to do with the cannabis. However, I do have the feeling that there's just some careful steps being taken, and the cannabis thing is not a dead idea at all. And so if it comes or when it comes, I'm really concerned about some of the things that have been mentioned here, the safety, the environment for us and our children, and I'm just not sure what all to mention. I think I'm getting some of the squirrels too that Yolanda talked about. That's been kind of difficult. The well water issue is kind of interesting. Where that well is shown there, they're almost right there already, that MID owns. And I don't know that is neither here nor there. I just thought it was interesting that they're proposing to put it right next to that one, I guess. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? If not, I'll bring it back to the commissioners. Anybody have any questions?
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair Wallace. My name is Kelsey George. I'm with Precision Civil Engineering. I am the project's representative. And then I also have Renew, who is with the ownership team.
Can you speak a little louder, maybe
Sure.
closer to the mic, or move it up? Thank you.
Sure. So I'm not unlike many other people in the public. I get nervous at these things too. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things and provide as many clarifying points as possible, and then I'll turn it over to Renew to clarify even further. The first comment about the zoning and the general plan amendment, I just wanted to emphasize that there is no rezone being proposed with this. So any uses that are currently permitted under the M1 zone district is what would be included in industrial park, cannabis and non-cannabis. Only which is still consistent with the M1. There's cannabis uses, and those are non-retail uses. I'll talk a little bit more about cultivation versus retail. The second thing I wanted to touch on was the environmental assessment and the comment on not having a significant impact. Miguel explained it a little bit, and it's a less than significant impact if it can be reduced to less than significant with mitigation. So that's what that list of mitigation measures are. In mitigation and monitoring program. So with all of those mitigation measures applied to the project, which would be included as conditions of approval of the project, it would reduce the impact to less than significant. So that's what that means and why those boxes weren't checked. Addressing the cultivation versus retail and the odor and the cannabis stuff, the city does have a very extensive control plan. So all odor impacts would have to be mitigated and addressed through that. There's a security plan required. There's some kind of development agreement or operating agreement that the city requires that goes through legal counsel. So this isn't just kind of like a one and done. Once we get the lots there and we have to go through the CUP process, there's still a lot of control in mitigating the cannabis use itself. So things like odor, safety, security, things like that will all be addressed at that time. The municipal well was a requirement from the city. I think we would probably want to defer to the city engineer to answer more on that. To touch high level very briefly, the property is within city limits. It was routed to all of the departments and agencies that would have any comments on it, and the comment was made that a municipal well would need to be constructed in conformance with city standards in order to serve the property. More about safety, and the road is not equipped for traffic. MAP will be required to pay its fair share of all roadway improvements, as well as construct portions of Bird Street. So in theory, this would help facilitate the development of those improvements on those roads and help make it so that they are safer. There was a traffic study done, and all of those mitigation measures were also incorporated. And that's all I have, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening to our neighbors as well. First of all, I would like to apologize to the neighbors. It's been brought to my attention today in today's meeting that these concerns and the issues that you're having and the nuisance that it has caused. So on behalf of the project owners and the board of directors, I would like to apologize personally. After this meeting, I'm gonna hang around. I'm gonna catch your contact information. I'd like to reach out to you personally tomorrow or next week to see if there are local residents or local businesses that are willing to help and assist in cleaning up the project and the project site. It was also brought with my attention when I was listening earlier with Bob Willis about the fire concerns. It wasn't in my view that that could be a concern. So we would like to reach out to each and every one of our neighbors. I will be giving you my contact information and we can discuss this further. And I would want to use somebody local within the local farmers to assist in making sure that we've addressed all your concerns in regards to any rodents or the debris that needs to be removed from there. In regards to the actual tentative map itself, that's what we've actually submitted today for review and for approval. It's a tentative map for industrial use. I understand that there's concerns in regards to future development or future applications, CUP, for cannabis use. That's not our primary use of the industrial park, so I'd like to just they're like storage facilities and so forth. Also been addressed, and there are mitigation levels put into place so that we can address that in regards to improving Bird Street. So I do understand and sympathize with you when you say that there is a local school. I actually have only been to this site on 3 separate occasions, and I myself did not want to drive my car down that street. So I completely understand your concerns, and I would hope that during the planning time with the planning directors and the local city engineer, that we will be able to address these concerns so that it can also improve safety not only for the local residents, but also for the people who will be using it for the industrial park themselves, because we would not want them to be at risk either. In regards to the concerns for the water and the questions that you had in relation to that, unfortunately, I don't have any experience in that or any information, but I will reach out with Precision and see if we can work with the engineers to see what the water conditions are and what we can do within our development to address that, not only for our project, but also the local neighbors as well. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that this project, it's been on the shelf for 4 years, and it's taken a big toll on the investors that have purchased this, hoping to bring in a development into the city. This project is also going to be bringing in a lot of traffic, which I can understand, but that will also potentially result in also further businesses and job perspectives as well. The money that we are planning to use to develop this project is going to also assist in developing off-site improvements. That off-site improvement is actually very high compared to other projects that we have developed, and the board of directors and the owners are willing to invest that kind of money into this project for the city of Livingston because they believe the potential is here. So I would like to make sure that we've addressed that with the commissioners and the local neighbors, that we are going to be here. I will make myself personally available and give the city, the local city, our direct contact information and how you can reach out to me. So thank you for your time. I hope I was able to assist.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yes,
Real
sure.
quick. You mentioned your amount of money they're going to have to put in for infrastructure, the streets, the bridges, the sewer, water wells. Do you have a rough estimate? Just how many, are you talking $1 billion to get this project up and have it feasible where you can make money off the sales and what goes in? And is this a 10-year project or a 15?
It looks like it will be between a 10 to 15 year development, keeping it within the owners. But however, when it comes to the cost, we have done a analysis of the cost, and we are looking at, just for the off-site improvements, close to around 2.5 million in off-site improvements. That's because we will have to be connecting a very long linear feet of close to, I believe it's 1,100 and so linear feet to connect to the local, to the tie-in point for the water and for the sewer and the storm drain. That will also assist with the local neighbors who will in the future want to also tie into those new improvements that will be installed for utilities. Now, I wouldn't be able to address any engineering questions because I'm not an engineer, but however, these questions have been raised. The cost has been an issue, even though that cost is high, they are still willing to move ahead with this project from those improvements.
I have a question as well. In terms of the project in industrial, non-cannabis industrial, and the cannabis industrial, about what percentage would you say is your guys's, your analysis-wise, of how much of it's going to be non-cannabis versus cannabis?
At the moment, it's proposed to be a 30 to 70 split, 30 being cannabis and 70 being other industrial use. We don't want to emphasize that this is going to be a complete industrial park for just cannabis. It was just the way that it was proposed at that time, with the availabilities that was proposed with the city, with the previous owners. These are the new owners. We do want to address other businesses that could be potentially used in this area. From my understanding and the discussions I've had with the owners, they're not looking to do retail. It's based on greenhouses and cultivation, which is mind me saying this, I wouldn't want to disrespect anyone, but it is actually a farming culture. So they will be growing marijuana no different to growing apples and oranges. Okay, I understand different categories, but it's still farming. And they will be addressing any safety measures, security into the site, off the site. But that's something that will be addressed during the CUP application per parcel. And per applicant. Applicants have to go through a very extensive background check. The site has to be adaptable to those security measures. Environmental studies will be taken care, will have to also be taken care of and into consideration. And that's how the smell, noise, and traffic will also be addressed through those processes. And just bearing in mind that depends if the applicant for that CUP is going to be moving ahead with anything that's going to be related to cannabis.
So a follow-up question to that then. If it's 3070, has the board of directors ownership looked into why the 22 parcels and getting the zoning or changing the uses on all 22, why haven't they looked into a 2 to 3, you can, here's the cannabis industrial side and here's, maybe folks are not gonna want a mixed use. The non-cannabis folks don't wanna commingle with the cannabis industrial uses.
I completely understand your question. That is something that we did bring to planning initially when we started this project. It was a question I actually did bring at that time. We did want to phase the project as in we want to develop X and Y number lots just for greenhouses and the rest will be for X, Y, and Z uses and limit the amount of mixed uses in the M1 zoning. But through conversation and the way that the project has been directed, this was one of the better options that was put forwards, and that's what we followed with the guidance and regulations and what the information that was available to us. We would have preferred that option, but unfortunately it wasn't available.
Okay. And then real quick, sorry, I got a lot of notes here. For you, Miguel, with that well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a requirement that a domestic and a municipal well is required? And the city is the owner of that municipal well, but the owner and the ownership puts that in?
Let me ask our city engineer to speak to that. Noe,
Vice Chair? Yes, do I need to introduce myself every time?
No, you're fine.
The answer is it would be city-owned. Therefore, it has been required to be a municipal well, which is going to be built to city standards. And once the well is constructed and put online, it would be dedicated back to the city.
Got it, thank you.
No, I have one question on that. I know you wanted to get away. Does the current city budget, if this was to happen next year, were we prepared for that in our budget?
This well would be completely funded by the project. What exactly are you referring to?
Well, I just wonder, in other words, are we gonna have to maintain it with filters? And is that something that the city planning department and you in public works, have you looked ahead and trying to program this already into the city budget for following years?
Yeah,
There's gotta be a dollar amount somewhere we're gonna have to use.
Yeah, so right now, we're not quite there. As you see, we're barely in the preliminary stages of what the improvements are gonna look like. Right now, we're just looking at basically schematics and diagrams. But the next step on the process here would be to work with the applicant to determine exactly what's going to be built. Is it going to be a well with treatment, a well with the tank? Once all that is determined, at that point, we would look at what kind of maintenance costs would be anticipated from this project.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else, questions from the commissioners? We'll close comment at, let's say, call it 8:30. And thank everybody for their comments and participation. You got anything to add, Miguel, to it? From your end of it?
No, again, just to refocus, the request is a general plan amendment. Let me pull up the resolutions here. It's an amendment to the general plan. The zoning is not being changed, it's M1, and it's a request to divide the land into 22 lots. And just to remind everyone, any future development, any of those lots would be subject to its own individual review. That'll be before the planning commission. Any new construction on any property in the city requires site plan design review by the approval by both the planning commission and city council. And if it's a cannabis-related use that's allowed in the M1 zone, those would also require the cannabis business permit, a development agreement, and then a conditional use permit for that. So again, staff's recommendation remains to adopt those three resolutions that are included in the agenda packet. I'm sorry, there's like 35 slides in the presentation. Here we go. So adopt resolution 2309, that's for the initial study mitigating negative declaration. It's recommending the adoption of the initial study mitigating negative declaration to the city council. Adopt resolution 2310, recommending approval of the tentative subdivision map. And then resolution 23-11, recommending city council approve the general plan amendment. It's listed in the agenda report, subject to the findings and including the resolutions and in the agenda report.
Question for you, Miguel. Speaking with the answer from the applicant that dividing it into a 2 or 3 was, speaking with the city, what was our take? Why wasn't that an option? And then further divide those the light industrials and
I want to be real clear, and there was two types of processes, if you will. One was the subdivision map, and the other was how the lots on the property would develop. And they were proposing to develop the subdivision map in phases. Kind of like the top part would be, you can bring up the subdivision map.
But can we condition as phase comes? Then that's where the cannabis industrial versus the non-cannabis industrial. So, and I'm only looking at if this is going to be our one of our first projects coming in. Well, then like kind of let's flow in with the city and aesthetically kind of have it separated from. And I'm not saying for no other purpose, but just that there's a difference between the cannabis versus the non-industrial uses.
Okay, I brought up the map of the subdivision map. Initially, they were proposing, this is just generally, this is phase 1, this is phase 2, and the bottom is phase 3, which makes perfect sense. And, from a business side, they wanted to work on a phase 1 where they can kind of begin to sell lots and develop that, and from that, they can develop the areas to the bottom. From a practical point of view, to be able to serve that, you need to put in the well, you put in the street improvements. And so to physically put the improvements on a phasing basis became problematic. So you're just looking at developing the first part, how are you going to bring sewer and water up there? Because you got to put the well down here. And we need to be real clear that, the development of the lots is one thing, which is the subdivision, but development on top of the lots is something else. And for us, it made sense just to develop all of the subdivision in one phase, to put all the street improvements in. Otherwise, you get stuff like, you got this private road here, and then let's just say it's built to right there, and there's a fire call, and it's like, should there be a roundabout? There's all these interim phasing and stages, and it just makes sense to put all the improvements in all at once. So do the subdivision map in one phase with all the improvements, so all the lots are finished, and then they can develop any of those lots in any phase that they like.
So we can't phase from the bottom up?
They could have, but they wanted to start from the top. The other thing had to do with underground the canal, and the cost for that, and how do you program that in? It's like you just allow them to move forward up the top property, and how do these things get folded in? So it became complicated. Again, the development of the subdivision is different than development of each of these lots. And that's why it was kind of confusing. That's my best explanation. I don't know if I did a good job, but that's what we're wrestling with.
I have a comment, Miguel.
Yes.
To add on to that, then, the applicant is telling us a 30-70 split of cannabis, non-cannabis, but the way that the rezone to M1 doesn't guarantee it's going to be 30-70. It could be 60.
Or 100.
Or 100%. There's no guarantee but the applicant's word. Is that correct?
Yes, there's, once the subdivision, well, again, the zoning is remaining the same, so it's M1. Once these lots are created, any of these lots can be sold and purchased by anyone, and they can develop them. You can have 22 lots that each of them will potentially have a business for cannabis. Again, non-retail. Or it could be that only one lot. It's really driven by the market, whether people want to invest in that or not. We don't regulate who buys the lots or who sells them, or how they're going to be developed. All we can do is respond to the applications that come in.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Renee?
Not right now.
Oh, I think she has a...
I would just like to answer the question that,
Microphone, please.
I would just like to answer the question, try my best for Commissioner Bassi. As I did mention previously, the 30-70 split, and I understand that you would like some control mechanism on how we as the developers would stick to that. I would like to say that each parcel that will be sold or maintained by the applicant will be submitting a CUP application. It's going to be determined by the commission at that time what they will allow, and then how many applications have been approved and how many further applications they would like to approve or would want to approve for this site. So that's something that can be addressed further on in this project. As a different phase and a different application. Right now, we are trying to go through a subdivision map that would like to go for a tentative map approval. In regards to flipping the project upside down and developing from the south going up north, that won't be feasible, because if you see the type of development that we have to do and the cost impact, it's going to be a higher cost impact to develop from the south going up north. So we would want to continue with the improvement being complete from south to north, but also making it available for occupancy and for resale back into the market to be able to use that investment to continue with off-site improvements. I apologize if I'm talking about the cost of this project, but that's just something that I specialize in, being a general contractor and also a developer myself. So looking at the way that the cost schedule is, we do want to build this out as soon as possible. It's holding funding for the last 4 years, so there are funds available to make this project happen. There are investors that are willing to continue investing into this project, and today is a very vital deadline for everybody as well to see, is this going to be a project that's going to be viable for them in the future. So at the moment, everybody is fixed and wants to understand, and want everybody to understand that we are just looking for the tentative map approval, preliminary approval. And we will address all other concerns during the final map recording. Thank you.
Thank you. So during the conditional use permit process, when it comes to us, then how do we limit, or how do we do a one, like, and this is just a number, I don't know, but how do you control how much comes in there versus, you know, the cannabis industrial versus non-cannabis? How do you do that internally on a staffing level?
The zoning code right now does not set any limits. It's kind of a free-for-all, but the Planning Commission and City Council can elect to approve as many as they like or not. It'll be on a case-by-case basis. I mean, there's a number of factors that come in. Once the development agreement comes in, usually there's some agreements for like revenue sharing and stuff like that. And you know, other jurisdictions, they kind of have I'll call it a beauty contest. They'll say, okay, you know what, if anyone that wants to develop cannabis, let's review 5 or 10 applications and we'll pick the top 3. And then they kind of review what each cannabis business is going to offer the city, if you will, for allowing them to open up there. But we don't have those provisions here. It's just zoned M1, and you can apply for a conditional use permit once you get your cannabis permit and development agreement established. But again, the Planning Commission and City Council will be reviewing the development agreements that come in, and so you have some level of gauging how many can be approved.
So there's no way we can set a provision saying, based on the applicant, we are allowing 30% cannabis and nothing else. So if anybody applies after this, after that 30%, we can easily decide at that time, as the CUPs come in saying, well, look, we've only agreed to 30% cannabis based on the original agreement of the parcel separation. Could we do that?
No, not at this point. It's just, if the zoning was to be like a planned development zone, then you can probably do that, but when it's straight M1 zoning, it's very liberal, and that is enough for today.
Yes, go ahead. I saw you raise your hand. Come on. You don't need to say your name again, we know you.
Thank you. With all due respect, the difference in farming, ma'am, is the fact that with almonds or anything else, you don't have to have a guard over there. You don't have to have guns over there trying to protect the crop. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
And my only other comment would be, if there's cannabis out there, a beauty shop or smoke shop or retail, I can't see anybody driving out there in the next 2 years to go put a non-cannabis shop or, you know, automotive repair or a veterinarian shop that far out of the city limits, when there's some that are mechanical shops. We got quite a few. I just don't see that traffic, but they are the experts. They kind of know what they think they can sell, and that's why he's putting that investment in. And I have one question that needs to be addressed by our council liaison. Jason, will you, I don't know how many people know where the shooting range is. I didn't know, even though I lived here for numerous years, until the first time I went out on the bird, and then I went out by it. I'd like to know, can you contact with the police department? I don't know what's out there, what's in there. Is the police department gonna have to add extra security in or around that area of the shooting range that is in the city limits? Because I know it's used by Merced County and city police, and I know there's other agencies that probably use that. But I don't know if security's there. But there may be enhancements they need. I know it's got a sign, lock the gate when you leave. Well, the gate always gonna be locked, or is that wide open, and you can walk around the gate and go right up to the buildings, because it was very easy. There were a lot of sheriff cars out there today, and I drove around a couple certain, not one person questioned me. So I think that needs to be addressed with the police department, if you would take that for me. Because I know from some of the residents, when they've called the sheriff's department, it takes forever to get response to their property. So now you're going through county road, to a city road, to the city shooting range. I think there needs to be a better agreement between Merced County Sheriff and Livingston Police on who's gonna patrol what, the exact, where's the responsibility in this here. Someone from Livingston Police Department go out there at night and make sure the gate's locked. I don't think we have the staffing able to do that. But it's just one of those odd questions I came up with. And then the other part would be the permanent perimeter fencing and all that. That is gonna come before the Planning Commission, City Council, that will address barbed wire, armed guards, and all that right now. That's in the future, depending on how the Planning Commission votes on this. But that would be my last comment on it. Unless the Commissioner's got any other comments, we're gonna close this one now and go from there.
The only comment I have is, I know that some people don't want this to happen, but the way I see it is it'll alleviate a lot of the issues that the public has commented on. If we allow the development of it, it'll reduce the concern of rodents out there. They'll have the development of the roads. If there's traffic that's actually going down Bird Street that's other than just our law enforcement, then that may push the county to improve Bird Street if there's actual businesses out there. So I think it might.
Businesses would be in the city limits.
Correct, but Bird Street is still a county road, if I'm not, am I correct?
Yeah, the area next to the project site's in the city. The area between the project site and Cressy Road, that's in the county.
So yeah, but Bird Street from before that bend into is county.
That's in the county, yes.
Yeah. So that would kind of force their hand to say, hey, look, we have traffic coming down this road for business purposes. We need to do something about this road. And it'd give us more leverage than saying there's only a handful of people who live there. Because I know that county is not very good about maintaining their roads, no matter who lives on it. Well, if a supervisor lives on there, they'll fix it pretty fast. But if it's not, they usually are pretty slow. Because I've driven down many of these county roads where there's no road. It's literally half paved and mostly dirt. And during the rain season, it's hazardous, just like Bird Street. A lot of our county roads are like that. So to me, this might kind of force more of their participation in improving Bird Street and that kind of stuff. So that's my take on it. So it would help, if we develop it, help alleviate those problems that they're having currently, cleans it up, and hopefully builds, gives them a road that they can actually drive on.
I think, real quick, I think, I just want to give my 2 cents, and I think maybe seeing another option of how this can come about would be helpful as well. Not just outright all 22, but another maybe we're the 50, and we're talking about off big commercial cannabis and leaving the area, and we're talking about rigs coming through that, and Livingston Cressy only being a single, two-lane street, and we're gonna have to be turning off left and then turning back on. That ability to widening Livingston Cressy up to that point. And then turning on to Bird Street, lighting, like Chair said, it's dark out there, right? Can we condition lighting that needs to be attached on Bird Street when the widening of 2 lanes does occur? Can we add something to that effect?
I don't know what that noise is for. The condition that's presented by the county, we can suggest that it be amended, but we routed this to the county, and we can look at their letter. Let me see, it's on. Because they're talking about a minimum of improvements. Let me go to that real quick.
Of the widening, correct? And a right-of-way?
Yeah, let me come over here to that. Okay, this is attachment number 6. It says Bird Street is the access road to the subject property. Merced County requires at a minimum, again, at a minimum, to improve Bird Street from the intersection of Livingston Cressy Road going to the subject property and provide a 2-lane paved road, striped center median, and fog lines as per the latest Merced County standard design. So there is some, this is a condition that's applied. There's some ability there to ask for additional things based on what the county will approve, but that's all they ask for. They say at a minimum.
Yeah, that's their minimum, right?
Right, it has to be developed to their standards, yeah, but yeah. I'm just saying
The
it
city
can.
standards could be different.
The city standards could be different, but it can include widening, the intersection. It can be a left turning lane there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get at. Like, if Livingston Cressy needs to be widened to allow a center turn lane to the left, yeah, because that's I just don't see how. I just foresee like a bottleneck issue down the road if we're thinking that, whatever way, if their folks are coming from Cressy turning right into the industrial, same thing.
So my question would be, would that go into the CUP when you start adding how much truck traffic is going to come? Because right now I'm just thinking we're subdividing. That's what we're approving as a subdivision. But when we start looking at CUPs, my concern would be then adding the traffic. What are the truck routes going into to that location? Are we adding additional traffic signals? All that stuff. But we're not talking about that right now because we're only talking about the subdivision of the actual parcel.
That's correct. And I don't know, I was going to ask Noe, is there anything you can add to this discussion about additional improvements that the county can request or?
So if I'm understanding correctly, the concern is the left turn movements off of Cressy onto Bird Street. So the study, the project did perform a traffic study, and I'm just looking here at my notes, and it did not identify a bottleneck issue there. But we can take another look at it and make sure that.
Yeah, my concern was like bigger. If I know during Miguel's initial, it was the bigger commercial cannabis and off taking whatever's produced in the greenhouse, whatever it is, off to another site that's not probably going to be driven by a single vehicle, an SUV. It's probably going to be a bigger tractor trailer that's taking stuff out, right? So jumping on onto Livingston Cressy as traffic's coming and approaching Bird Street from Livingston, turning onto, those are my concerns.
I think we have that now. That's
Yeah.
all farmland. So technically,
Yeah.
farm equipment do it already.
But you kind of add on to, right?
Yeah, we'll make sure that by the time we approve the actual designs for these projects, that we take a look at that.
Yeah, again, as each property is developed, we have an opportunity to review that, and depending on the traffic that's generated, it may be covered, but if additional traffic is, or the type of traffic that's generated requires additional improvements, those can be identified at that time.
Miguel, I did have a question. Again, back to the traffic. The traffic impact study that was done, it listed on page 277, it listed approved pending project traffic, where it states, you know, Legacy Homes has 100 single-family homes and on and on. That has been compiled in the traffic report that we received?
And I'll have to defer to Noe on this, but generally, a traffic study was prepared, and quite frankly, most of the traffic focused on cannabis-related businesses. It did not evaluate all industrial type of businesses, and any industrial use that's outside of the scope would have to have its additional traffic study done.
Okay.
But I don't know, Noe can shed more light.
Yeah, just to add that the reason the traffic study consider all those other projects is because of the forecast. We wanted to look at, okay, how's the traffic gonna look like when all these projects are completed and the particular project that is in question is also completed. And to that point, what we were trying to look at is what's going to be the impact on the interchanges of 99 and Hammond and Winton Parkway, because that's where the bottlenecks would occurred with the additional traffic. So that was the purpose for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Comments?
I do have a comment,
Okay, go
not a question. I did want to thank the people that reside here in Livingston for bringing your opinions to us and that. I value your opinions. You know, you vested in this city, you live here, you are the reason we're here. So I just wanted to thank you for your comments.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Renee. We covered a lot of territory. So now it gets down to the proposed action. So do we need to do do item 10 and then 11, or 9, 10, 11, or can we lump them all together? Or what's your advice on that?
I would recommend doing each one individually, but you can lump them all together, but it's just cleaner if you take action on each resolution so we know who moved, who's second, and it's approved.
Well, my question is, if hypothetically first is approved, is there any tie-in to second for that?
Can you repeat your question again?
So if hypothetically number one's approved, any bearing or any tie-in to one or two of that, so I mean, does that kind of?
So now I think what Steve's trying to say, if we do 2023-09 and we approve that, we're automatically approving basically 10 and 11. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, is there, or any information out of that mitigation that could impact one or two or three?
You can approve number one, you don't have to. At the end, these are going to be recommendations that go to the city council. It's always recommended that you move forward with the environmental assessment first, the initial study, mitigating negative declaration. If you agree that it was done properly, then it's appropriate to approve it or recommend approving of it. Now, you could elect to say, you know what, we are not in support of the tentative subdivision map. We don't think the findings can be made, and so we want to recommend denial of that. You can do that. Even though you deny that, that does not negate the status of the environmental document. And then same thing with the general plan amendment number 3. It makes sense to do the general plan amendment. Like I said, it's on the industrial reserve. The general plan says don't do any development until after 2020, and so now it's the year after 2020, we're in 2023. So it makes sense to kind of do a general plan amendment. So really the question is, do you want to approve resolution, 23-10 approving the subdivision map or not? Staffers recommend that you approve it. We have conditions of approval that regulate.
Do we have to go in a specific order?
Ideally, the first one should be done. The initial study, the mitigation measures should be done first. The next two, the general plan could go second, and the last one could be the subdivision map.
But we could approve -11 first and deny 9 and 10. I mean, that's what we're trying to get straight in our minds.
Yeah, my recommendation is to consider the first one first, and then you can go with the third one, and we just renumber those, and then the last one would be the subdivision map. I'm not sure if there's any concerns with approving or denying or recommending denial of any of these. Again, these are just recommendations to the city council. The city council will have final consideration and action on each of these.
And then one odd question, then Miguel, nobody has ever contacted the property owners are there, or the city hasn't looked at annexing that part of the county into the city where all the houses are? Has that been addressed?
Not while I've been with the city. I know annexations aren't really possible at this time until there's a tax sharing agreement between the city and the county, and there isn't any. So without that, there's really no ability to annex those properties. Can they annex in the future? Yes, it's in our general plan area.
I'm just curious, because they're gonna build up and put a sewer line and a water line from out on Cressy all the way in, bypassing all those properties, which I assume are on wells. If you're in the county house, and Mr. Smith, yours is, yeah. So I was just curious, you all have private wells, and then that construction of new sewer, water, I mean, it's going, bypassing all that to get to, what, 1.5 miles down the road into this new subdivision. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
That was just a wild thought. Okay, so we're back to, do we want to?
Well, I'll make
start with number one?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-09.
Which is recommending adoption of the initial study mitigated negative declaration with mitigation
I'll make a
monitoring.
motion to adopt that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Roll call. Commissioner Renee Mendoza. Commissioner Andres Fuentes.
Yes.
Commissioner Jose Flores.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi.
Yes.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 4, 1, or one abstain.
Was yours, I didn't hear you.
I was in a quandary. I don't think I've ever come to this position in
Either
the
abstain, no.
time I've had in the Planning Commission. I'll say yes.
Okay. Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
And Next up would be item 2023-10.
I think I need more information on this. I would like to see it divided into a smaller, and then subdivide into a smaller, but something separated, as I've expressed it already multiple times, so I'll let you guys, whoever has motions, tackle this one.
I think I'm along with you, though. I would like to see it as well in sections.
You're trying to say, Commissioner Bass, you want 2023-10, we're going to not recommend it.
Well, well,
it is now.
if someone has a motion to adopt it, that's different, but I'm just giving you my viewpoint at the moment. But if someone has a motion to or recommend approval of it, then you can have at it.
How about this? A lot of industrial parks similar to this are in the same design where they have multiple lots. Just our industrial area has multiple lots, if I'm correct? How they're subdivided and all in one row. And then one owner can rent out 3 or 4 of those parcels and it's, their thing. So to me, it's no different from any other one that I've seen, whether you go to Merced or Turlock, Hillmar. They all have similar designs to this where it's multiple lots. And then they're, carried out. But good example, Always Towing can have 2 of them side by side, and that's what
Yeah,
they do.
but the difference is that's commercial, and this will open up, again, the non-cannabis
Versus
and the cannabis
right.
as well. That's the difference that I see it as, and I want to see a little bit of more,
Guarantee?
a little bit of more of separation between the two. Just, and that's just a planning thing for myself.
Okay, I'll make a motion on 2023-10 that we do not approve it, number 2. Until we get more information comes back.
Yeah, I would say.
I'll second that.
I would say to bring back with maybe a more informative and more divided plan of how we want to tackle this, and not just carte blanche 22 and anything just can come in there. That makes it a little challenging for on the commission side. That's my point of view.
Okay, we have
I
a
mean-
motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
I'll second that motion.
We need a roll call because I already heard you say you seconded it.
For the record, Mr. Wallace, Chair Bob Wallace, you made the motion?
I did,
Okay,
for 2023-10.
thank you.
So again, we're making a motion not,
To not approve it.
Do not adopt yet.
if I was to want to approve it, what would I say?
You would make it a motion
So I'll
to
just make-
approve.
Right.
I mean, I understand, Miguel's point of view and how he explained. I mean, you have to start, I mean, again, it's all the whole lots itself. I mean, where the well's at, I mean, you have to really get all that started first before you can start from the top how they're wanting to do it. So I understand their breakdown, but I understand from our point of view too, we want to have some control. I mean, Bessie, if we approve it, we are just pretty much leaving it up to them, in their hands of, what they want to add there, how much they want to add. But,
However, we have a second, a motion in a second, and we ask for.
Yeah, I kind of following Andres here. So, a motion not to approve, and we have a second,
right.
but Andres is saying that maybe he wants to
You want to make
potentially.
a motion on it to approve?
Yeah, but don't we have to go through your motion
Yes.
first?
Right, we have to go through the motion.
Right, you have to complete the action though, on the motion that's been initiated and second, and then there's a vote. You're having a second discussion, but if the commission doesn't want to approve that motion, then, they vote not to approve it on a majority, then there can be a different motion. But you need to finish up that motion second first.
First and a second, yes.
So it's been moved and second to not recommend approval of tentative subdivision map number 2020
As it stands.
as proposed, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, as proposed.
So we need a roll call on it.
Yep.
Roll call, Commissioner Renee Mendonca,
To not approve.
to not approve.
Yes.
Commissioner Andres Fuentes,
I would like to approve it, so
There's a no.
so no.
No, then.
Commissioner Jose Flores,
That will be a no.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi,
Yes.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Yes.
Motion to not approve by a vote of 3-2 is approved.
Yeah, now we're moving on to 2311, right?
Yes.
So Miguel, on this, like, is the goal, like, majority of our industrial reserves to make them limited industrial? Like, what precedents are we setting?
It doesn't have to be limited industrial, it can be general industrial, but limited industrial has a little more, I'll just say restrictions. M2 is just pretty much anything goes. M1 is, there's more limitations, and, you get use permits involved and stuff like that. You're kind of developing out the north part of town. You got Foster Farms that's in the general industrial, heavy industrial. And it's really, what type of land uses do you want to see out there? And, staff thinks that a limited industrial is more appropriate to kind of serve as a transition between the heavy industrial and some of the surrounding properties. But, that's our recommendation. That's what the application has applied for, to amend the general plan. Really, it's to take it out of the urban reserve, because in the urban reserve setting, you really aren't allowed to develop until so much time has passed by. In that case, they identify the year 2020. It's like, don't do anything on this property until the year 2020 comes by. Well, now we're in 2023, so it makes sense. Yeah, we can consider development out here, so let's just change the general plan for this area.
Why 20, what was the significance of 2020?
I don't know, this is from the 1999 general plan. They thought 20 years from now, we'll probably be developing out here, so let's allow that. It's just the wisdom of that earlier time.
So what limitations does industrial reserve have?
What, say that again, what limitation?
Limitations does industrial reserve have?
Again, we're talking about the general plan versus the zoning. Industrial reserve means we have plans that's going to be industrial, but at this point, no development should take place out there until so much time has passed, which is 2020. There's no other limitations than that. Like they're setting land aside in the future to be developed as industrial until the city has grown, or there's really no other limitations other than if it's industrial reserve, you won't be able to make the finding that the M1 zone is consistent with the industrial reserve, because the industrial reserve is no development yet, even though it's industrial. If you want to develop anything in there with the M1 zone, you can't make the findings consistent with the general plan then. But if you change it to limited industrial, then they line up the M1 is limited industrial and the general plan is limited industrial, then they can move forward with development.
One of them allowed cannabis, right? And the other didn't, if I remember correctly, off your general plan chart for IR versus LI.
So you can't be the first to put industrial out there? Is that what you're saying? In a industrial reserve?
Yeah, reserve is kind of like, hands off. You can't do anything on this property yet. No development.
Yeah, and we can't say that you can?
Right now, the general plan says it's in reserve, and so development is not contemplated there yet.
So if like a neighboring property was to develop, then what?
A neighboring property can only be developed out there if it's, I think it's in the county, or if it's in the city,
I'm just saying, like,
I think you're very limited. You just gotta maintain the agriculture business or use that's out there. That's just how our general plan is set up. You got these areas around, there's like open space reserve and industrial reserve. It kind of serves as a buffer for development around the city. I think it's important and it's needed to do the general plan amendment from industrial reserve to limited industrial. That whole area is going to be industrial. You can say not limited industrial, say general industrial.
Can I see that map again? What's from IR to LI,
Yeah, here, let me,
please?
yeah, so the one on the left, you have IR, industrial reserve. The one on the left, you're showing it LI.
So the one where it says IR already, those are already IRs.
IR, yeah, not all of it is IR, most of it is IR. The top part is PF, which is public facility, but if you look at the properties to the west, you can see it's IR. If you go down to the bottom, I think it's GI, general industrial. Yeah, you can see that.
Can I ask a question? So, Miguel, I think the reason that the GPA was requested was because the property is already zoned M1, which is not consistent with the IR. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So either a rezone had to happen or a GPA had to happen, and we opted for the GPA because we wanted M1 uses. So if we keep it LI, it's not consistent with the zoning. And zoning and land use have to be consistent with each other.
They have to be in alignment, yeah.
So is that phrased wrong then?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, it says IR to LI.
Right.
If it's already LI,
No, that's a proposal that we're reflecting the parcel that we're recommending to be redesignated LI. If you look at the one on the left, the map on the left, you see it's IR. That's the current general plan designation. And Martha, you can zoom in on that, yeah. So all that's IR, IR, IR.
So then just one more clarifying question, sorry. So any property with the general plan land use designation of IR in this reserve would have to do a GPA?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we take it from IR to LI, means that we are able to build, to develop that property.
Yes,
Whereas
it'll be
right now, it's
consistent.
just being held in reserve, and it's really doing nothing.
Correct. If you change the general plan from IR to LI, you'll be consistent with the current zoning of M1,
Okay.
which M1 is,
One.
yeah, M1 is limited industrial, and so to develop out there, the general plan should also say LI, or IG, I think it is. But
GI?
GI, yeah, general industrial. So it can be either general industrial or LI, limited industrial.
I'll make the motion to, can I see what it says again? to amend
Adoption of the general plan
the
amendment?
general plan from
IR to
IR
LI.
to LI. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Did we get a second down there? I didn't hear. Okay, thank you.
So it's been moved in second? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Roll call. Commissioner Rene Mendonca,
Yes.
Commissioner Andres Fuentes,
Yes.
Commissioner Jose Flores,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi,
Yes.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
This item will be scheduled to go to the city council. We're targeting the second meeting in October.
Okay, let's go on to item number 8, Miguel. Nothing is there.
Other matters, there's no other matters.
Number 9.
Item number 9 is report of the planning director. Let me get my notes here. I can't find them, but I lost it in my papers here.
Where'd it go?
Here we go. The planning director's report to the planning commission, September 12th. Recent city council actions. On August 29th, Councilmember Soto and Mann, together with Commissioner Chair Wallace and Commissioner Mendonca, attended the Merced County Multi-Jurisdictional Housing Element Update Committee Workshop, which was held in these chambers. Thank you for participating in that. On September 5th, the council appointed alternate planning commissioner Jose Flores as a regular commissioner to complete the term of Commissioner Happy Baines, who resigned on August 16th. So welcome aboard to full-time status, Commissioner Flores. Housekeeping items. The city continues to solicit applications to fill the vacant positions now of 2 alternate planning commissioners. Interested Livingston residents are encouraged to apply with the city's deputy city clerk at City Hall. On the horizon at this time, there are no items scheduled for the Plan Commission meeting of October 10th, 2023. This concludes the director's report this evening.
Thank you. Other matters, I'd like to call Councilmember Broth up to the podium. I had asked him before to give us a couple reports on a couple of projects and items within the city limits that we addressed at a prior meeting.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. You guys asked about it not being televised. It's being televised finally. I got with the interim city manager on a few of these, and he did answer me on them. You had a concern about an alternate commissioner. As of right now, there's no applicants. The speeding by the high school, the stop sign, the speed bumps. The city manager got with the acting chief, and he put the radar trailer out there, and he's going to follow up on it and keep on monitoring it. The roundabout with the semi-trucks and the speeding, the acting chief is also observing, and he's also going to put the radar trailer out there, so I'll follow up with that too as time goes on. You had concerns about animal control and code enforcement. So he's spending 50-50 on his time. So 50% on animal control, 50% on code enforcement. So what I got here. So they are following up on that. Also garage sales, they're going to be watching that. And like I said, I'll keep on following up the interim city manager and we'll go from there. Thank you, guys.
What did, Councilmember Roth, what is his emphasis on garage sales? Because when he originally was appointed and got into this position, he said that was going to be a priority. Is he looking for signs on the poles, signs on the streetways? What is his priority on the guard? Are they going to enforce 2 a year from city residents?
You know, he didn't get into that all the way. He just said they will be watching. That's all I got from him. So I will follow up and find out how much further he's going to go into it and, you know, crack down on it.
Okay, next matter would have been the parking on B Street before Robin with all the trucks. Did anything get resolved?
I didn't have that in my notes, so I didn't ask that question.
That was one I
No.
brought up with you. Okay.
I do note on that fact on B Street on parking of the trucks, I continually go home that way every day, and I only see trucks parked out there on Fridays and Saturday nights when the TA is at maximum capacity, and there's nowhere for them to park. Because I specifically went into the TA and asked, you know, and they said we're completely filled, and I noticed a truck having to park where we were complaining about. So I am hoping that somewhere along the line with the new truck stop, Moonglow, that was approved, that
I think that'll resolve a lot
I
of the
think
issues of
that'll
the trucks
resolve that, and
parking
I
on the
think right
streets
now
and
that it's just
places where
because
they're not supposed
they
to
have
be.
nowhere else to stop.
Yeah, understood.
You know, the DOT says when you're at 10 hours that, you gotta get out of that truck. And if it wasn't, and I do believe that there are trucks that are owned in this city by individuals that are parking there and using that instead of actually finding a place for them to permanent park over the weekend and paying for it.
That
That's
very
what
well
I
could be.
think.
But I'll talk to the city manager about that.
But the original question would have been, does he have a permit for truck parking? Today I called code enforcement around 2:30, 2:45, because there were 8 trucks there. In addition to hosing down the dirt lot, he was washing the truck. Now,
Okay.
does he have a permit to park trucks there? That's either a yes or no from the city.
I think Chair Wallace is talking about the residents.
Yeah.
Right, okay, then
Not the
I was
street.
talking on the right-hand side as you're going, I'm bad about my directions, towards Robin, whereas you're talking about the left-hand side, right? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I was talking about the right-hand side,
All right,
Jason.
I'll mention that.
The property at 164 B Street does not have a permit to park trucks there. It's going through code enforcement.
Yeah, then I called code enforcement today, so my next thing is in the city, what is the city gonna do? Are we gonna allow it? Does he need to be? Now that he's washing trucks, we don't know what he really wants to do with that land, but there's used tires, they change the oil, wash everything going on there. What does the city do? Do we need to step in?
Again, I'll mention that to the city manager and
Okay,
see
the
what
code
response we
enforcement
can
should
get.
have gone out there today,
Okay.
because I called on the washing of the trucks. Is that adding more pollution into that air, into that
Gotcha.
area? Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
One last item, you should have gotten it. I had already announced I would not be able to attend October meeting or December's meeting, irregardless of if they had one in October. So normally, and under our bylaws, if I'm not here, the vice chair automatically takes over. However, if the vice chair isn't here, because he's filling in as the chair, we do not have a vice chair. So I'd like to make a motion that the position of chair from October 1st till December 31st, when their new officers are elected for 2024, that Steve Bassi be the chair and the vice chair be filled until that time, Renee Watt Mendoka. And then in December, they can decide who will follow on as chair and vice chair for year 2024. That way, in case something happens, Steve, for some reason, cannot make a meeting, there is a vice chair in that position for the 90 days. Otherwise, you might have to cancel the meeting because we wouldn't have a chair or a vice chair meeting. And this was my decision clearly. As of October 1st, I'm going to resign as chair. And my term doesn't expire till December of the following year, and then I'll make a decision what's going on after that. So I make that motion that we approve Steve as chair and Renee as vice chair for the next 90 days. Can I get a second on that?
Are they okay with that?
The only one that knew that.
Bob approached me, yes.
That's on in front of me, oh, okay.
The only one I asked about it, and the only one that knew this was coming, was Corinne Renee, because I asked her ahead of time if she would be interested in filling that position if it was available. And she agreed she would, so. I did not talk to you about it or any other commissioners. Miguel didn't know about it till today when I turned that letter into them.
Yeah, whatever the wishes of the commissioners are, I wouldn't mind.
Well, it's me, I made a motion, so it needs a second. And
I would second that. I'll second that.
roll call.
Okay, next time, give me
Roll call. Commissioner Renee Mendonca,
Yes.
Commissioner Andres Fuentes,
Yes.
Commissioner Jose Flores,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steve Bassi,
yes.
Chair Bob Wallace.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Let's adjourn the meeting at 9:30 until either an October, November, or December meeting, which Steve will be chairing.